And hello gamers, and welcome back to our continued look at classic Atari arcade games from the 1980s. We are currently looking at a classic. We're looking at a game that became a legend in arcade circles and is still popular even today and has been mimicked and ported to more platforms than most any other game ever has in history. We're talking about classic Asteroids. Now, interestingly, this game is considered a 80s classic, but it actually came out in '79. This has a MOS 6502 processor, like most arcade games from this time. It uses Atari's quadra-scan technology for high-resolution vector graphics. It's again vector graphics, black and white. There's no color here. It also doesn't have a sound chip. It actually has the processing for audio hardwired onto the motherboard. There's no chip. It's actually hardwired to the board to produce sound effects. And the sound effects are pretty basic for the arcade game. This was developed pretty much using the same hardware that was used for the game Lunar Lander. And it was inspired partially by games like, surprisingly, Space Invaders. And it influenced games like Defender. So, pretty interesting. This game influenced a lot. It changed a lot. It was one of the first arcade games that really hit mainstream, that was really popular. This is what started the arcade craze. This game right here. Very popular game. So let's take a look at what's here. Now this is the original cabinet. This is from a flyer. This is the original cabinet version. As you can see, the controls are buttons. There are no joysticks on this. You control this with buttons. The basic controls you have are turning left and right, thrust, and you do also have a warp button for randomly jumping around the screen. You'll see that as we get into the game here in a little bit. Some more from the flyer. Here's another picture of the cabinet. A badge for promotional material. Flyer showing specifically a different variation of the cabinet version. This is a smaller cabinet version than the original large one. And here's another flyer with the cocktail table style, which this one is rarer to find. I have not seen many of these. This one's rarer to locate, rarer to find. And we're back. So let's get into the game. Let me show you what this is all about. Now, as I said, this is vector graphics, but it's simulated here because we're emulating the game. And it's fairly simple. You shoot at the asteroids, break them up, you get rid of all of them. There's some basic sound effects, and from time to time you'll see a spaceship come along shooting laser out. You have to shoot that alien spaceship. Here we go. That's it. Oh! I didn't intend to warp there. Uh-oh. And it gets faster and more hectic. destroy these asteroids before they hit me. Alright, cleared the field. They got another one. Actually doing better with this one than I did with all the other ones. Ow! Maybe not. Okay, I actually got a high score. Okay. Alrighty then. Let's see how far I can get this time. And it's amazing, you know, the sound effects this was able to do without an actual dedicated sound chip. You know, the glow you see around the graphics, that's simulated what the actual vector display would look like. Oh, I got him. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Big guy almost hit me. Ooh. Ouch. Arg. I think I beat my last high score. Again. Yes, I did. Alright, let's try and do it one more time. Should have jumped. Or warped, whatever they call it. Lots of asteroids. Uh-oh. Got him. I think I did beat my last high score. Oh, yeah, I did. Yep, I did beat my last high score. Wow. Well, that is Asteroids. That's basically all there is. You just continue on through the screens and the asteroids get rapidly faster and faster and faster, and you just keep going until you build up a really, really, really high score. Now, there have been competitions back in the day where people would compete to try and get the highest score there is. This was, years before there were ever esports, but there were pretty high profile competitions back in the day where people tried to get the highest score in the game. And that was a thing, and you could actually win money back then. So, that was a precursor to what we have today with games like League of Legends and Dota 2 and Hearthstone and all the other games that are involved in esports now. It was a precursor to that. And it was a big deal back then for having competitions like this. And it took a lot of skill. I mean, you have to really pay attention to what's going on the screen. I mean, for me, with my vision the way it is, it's remarkable I'm able to keep up with everything that's going on the screen here, because you have all these small little asteroids flying around. You have that spaceship that's shooting around, and you notice that the spaceship can also shoot the asteroids, destroy them. And the longer you go, the higher score you get, the more lives you can earn. And it's one of those games where it's easy to learn. It's easy to play, easy to learn, easy to get into, but it's difficult to master. Very difficult to master. And pretty much every arcade I've ever visited in the 80s and even in the 90s had Asteroids. I haven't seen many arcades that didn't have an Asteroids machine. Most had one. I haven't seen many that didn't. And, if you're running an arcade someplace, you have to have an Asteroids cabinet of some kind. You cannot have a arcade without Asteroids. Come on, this is the quintessential arcade game. This is the game that thrust arcades into the limelight. What made them popular? This is the game that got people out, putting quarters into the machines. This is what made going to the arcade popular. This game right here. This is what opened the doors, opened the floodgates for all sorts of other arcade games. Pong was popular. Arcades were around before video games. Arcades were around before video games because they had this little thing called pinball, and that's been around since, I think, like the 40s or even earlier, and then there were other things, but this is what made video game arcades so popular. This is what brought people out, playing stuff like this, playing games like this. And for the time, for the technology available, what they were doing with this was pretty remarkable. I mean, it didn't even have a sound chip. The audio hardware was hardwired. The circuitry for it was hardwired on the motherboard, where it would normally be chips, where it would normally be circuits on a chip. It was hardwired on a board to make sound, and it's pretty simple sound. I think it was like 3 voices that it could do. So that was pretty remarkable back then. I mean, they barely had the technology to make this work. And if you think about it, this is 1979 when this came out. Only 10 years before. You had Apollo 11, and their computer was really basic. Their computer was hard programmed. I believe it was, what was the method they used? I forget the name of it, but the program was stitched, literally. They literally had old women crocheting with wires and small magnetic rings. And that is what the program was in the computer. Literally, that's what the program was in the computer, and the computer was very simple and basic. This arcade game, 10 years after Apollo 11, is actually more powerful than the computer on Apollo 11. I would say probably the 6502, the Model 6502 was probably 10 times more powerful than the Apollo 11 computer. 10 times more powerful. Think about that. Those simple little arcade games from 1979 was more powerful than the computer on the Apollo 11 capsule. Like, that's pretty amazing. And that was just in 10 years' time how far technology advanced. So, what's the next game in the list? I think I can safely say Asteroids Deluxe, the follow-up to the original Asteroid. Now, as this one didn't sell as well. This game didn't sell as well. And that's why we got a game like Space Duel came out in response to that. But I've seen this in arcades too. I've seen this in a lot. There was a corner store where I used to live in Detroit. I lived on McGraw. I lived on Florida Street near McGraw in Detroit, Michigan. And there's a store on the corner, and the store had arcade games there. And they always had a Asteroids Deluxe arcade game there. They had another one there also, but I forget what that one was. I think that one got replaced out a lot. They had Asteroids Deluxe. They had to remove it after they got their liquor license, because they were required to not have arcade games if they had a liquor license. So they got rid of it. That was like in the late 80s when they got rid of it. But yeah, I've seen this one around a lot. I think a Caesar's Pizza had, I think a Caesar's Pizza had one of these around for a long time. I forget where that one was located. I know that one I think was in Dearborn. Caesar's Pizzeria. They had one for a long time. So, I've seen this run around, but as I said, this one back in the day didn't sell as well as the original Asteroids did. And so that's why we got Space Duel. That's why they pulled that one out of mothballs and released it. So, next time, we're going to play this game, and I'll show you what all the differences are between Asteroids and Asteroids Deluxe, and talk a little bit about the technology behind it, and show you the gameplay. I know these videos are a little short, but there's not much depth to these games. These gameplay videos are a little short, but there's not much depth to them. Not like a modern game today, like Fallout 4, or Call of Duty, or StarCraft, or anything like that, which I'm going to have a StarCraft playthrough at some point, because it's free now. But I may record some multiplayer sessions between me and a friend of mine. But to get back to this, these games don't have much depth to them. They're very repetitive, very competitive sort of games. So there's not much to them. That's why I only record just a small amount of gameplay, because really that's all there is to them. Back in the day, that's all there is. Games today, even arcade games today, are a lot more complex, but these games were pretty simple back in the day. So, next time, Asteroids Deluxe. If you liked this video, give us a like and consider subscribing. Also, again, if you liked any of the arcade games in here, if you know of any Atari arcade games that are not on this list, if you know of any that are on this list that probably should be, that maybe we can suggest to Arcade Vault to maybe try and get their hands on, so they can add it to the list of games, because they do periodically add new games to Arcade Vault. So if you know of any specifically arcade games from the 80s from Atari that should be added to Atari Vault, let us know what those might be in the comments below. And remember, we also have our community on Google+. Gamers Bay community there, and we'll have a thread for this video there. So go there and join in the conversation. I've been Mike. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.